What would you do if you realized that the car you promised a world champion does not serve to compete at the highest level? Ferrari has days, not weeks, to save his season. And Hamilton's legacy is at stake. The SF-25 has been described by many within the paddock as a theoretically brilliant, but practically limited car. What seemed in the papers a promising aerodynamic evolution is resulting to be a technical trap difficult to correct. The design base has focused on maximizing airflow under the bottom of the car and reducing resistance, two aspects that on paper should translate into greater global efficiency. However, on the track, these decisions have exposed a clear Achilles heel. The dynamic balance of the car is broken into real race conditions. One of the most discussed elements has been the pull rod type front suspension, a choice that was thought to improve curve and stability during braking. The theory was simple: reduce the head of the car, keep the bottom flat closer to the ground and gain frontal aerodynamic load. But in practice, this decision has generated a critical consequence in the rear train. The mass distribution and the way the loads are transferred to the chassis create a rear so light that even talent pilots like Hamilton fail to stabilize the car under pressure. What should be a balanced car in technical circuits has become a capricious machine and very sensitive to any wind or track temperature change. This is aggravated by one of the most significant structural limitations of SF-25, the minimum height to the ground. To avoid excessive wear of the plank, a key piece that regulates compliance with the Ferrari minimum height regulation has had to configure the highest car than ideal. This decision forces us to sacrifice part of the lower aerodynamic load, losing efficiency in high-speed curves. It is a problem that is amplified and traced as Imola, where stability and lateral adhesion are essential to maximize performance. Another critical point has been the tire management. The SF-25 shows a worrying disability to extract temperature uniformly, especially on the front axle. This means that the car fails to correctly activate the compound in the classification return, wasting time from the first sector. The result is an important gap with leading teams such as McLaren or Mercedes, who do exploit the tire performance peak at the right time. Ferrari, on the other hand, faces classification sessions committed from the beginning, condemning their pilots to fight against the race. This erratic behavior also directly impacts ERS energy management, energy recovery system. Not having full confidence in the rear train, the pilots cannot apply the accelerator as soon as they would like, which prevents optimal energy regeneration and limits the strategic use of the electrical deployment. All this derives in a general loss of competitiveness both in fast laps and in sustained career rhythm. It is known that the correlation between the Maranello simulator and the real data on the track has not been perfect. This has greatly hindered development and adaptation work for Hamilton, who is still in a learning curve with the team. While Leclerc has learned to live with the inconsistencies of the SF-25 thanks to years of experience with temperamental cars, Hamilton has had to unlearn habits built for more than a decade in Mercedes. This is the true drama of the SF-25. It is not simply a slow car. It is a car that does not forgive mistakes, which does not give maneuver to its pilots, and that reacts exaggeratedly to any modification of adjustment. And that, in Formula One modern, is a death sentence for any title aspiration. Ferrari has understood that the time of the excuses is over. Emilia-Romagna's Grand Prix represents much more than a simple home career. It is the last chance to stop the mood and technical deterioration of the SF-25 project. Given this scenario, Maranello's team has opted for a meticulous and highly specific approach to try to save their season. It is not a large aerodynamic package as initially rumored. Instead, the strategy revolves around a series of surgical macro adjusts designed exclusively to improve the behavior of the car in the hands of Lewis Hamilton. One of the most important fronts has been the partial redesign of the rear suspension system. Ferrari's engineers, after analyzing the telemetry of the first races and comparing it with the simulator data, have detected that the original configuration penalized the traction and generated instability peaks right at the time the pilot resumed the accelerator at the curve output. This not only caused loss of time, but also an accelerated wear in the right rear tire, especially in medium-side load paths such as Imola. The modification then consists of a recalibration of the lower arm and an adjustment in the rigidity of the shock absorber set, which should translate into a greater absorption of vibrations and a more progressive transition of weight between the axes. Another vital change has been in the field of electronic differential. Ferrari has updated the active differential management software to offer a more gradual response in torque delivery, allowing Hamilton to better modular the traction phase power. This change is directly oriented to solve one of the biggest complaints of the British: sudden survival at the time of curve output, which forced him to continually correct and lost speed in the process. Additionally, the work with the Maranello simulator has intensified. Hamilton spent 2 full days at the firing facilities by adjusting different height, stiffness, and braking distribution, looking for a tuning that maximizes performance in the medium speed curves typical of the Imola layout. This collaboration with the team of track engineers has been key, since it allows to reduce the margin of error during free training of the weekend, optimizing the use of little time on the track. Another work front has been the preparation for classification. Knowing that the main deficit of the SF-25 is in the ability to put the tires in the fast return temperature, Ferrari has decided to modify the heating procedure. New thermal management protocols have been implemented, both in blankets and installation laps, with simulations that have identified what combination of load and speed in specific sectors active better the Pirelli rubber. This adjustment, although discreet, can make a difference between a third row or a fight for pole. And as part of an integral approach, Ferrari has given Hamilton greater freedom to adjust parameters from cockpit. This includes more flexible configurations in the brake migration and on the motor map, something that until now was more limited by internal policies. The confidence in his experience and his sensitivity to read the car has led the team to open spaces that were previously reserved only for Leclerc. This gesture is not only technical but symbolic. Ferrari acknowledges that if he wants to win, he must adapt to Hamilton, not to wait for him to be the other way around. Each of these measures represents a small step, but together they make up a conceptual redesign of the team's work approach. It is not sought to create a new car, but to make the SF-25 finally become a predictable, docile and usable car in the hands of a pilot who has demonstrated during a decade that it can make the difference when the car accompanies it. The success of this plan will not be measured only in final positions, but in the perception of progress. If Hamilton ends the weekend feeling that he has regained control, Ferrari can consider his partially fulfilled mission. But if the solutions do not translate into a tangible improvement, the fracture could be deepened. And in Formula One, an internal fracture becomes very fast at a point without return. For Lewis Hamilton, the beginning of the 2025 season has meant more than a technical challenge. It has been an emotional journey marked by frustration, uncertainty, and above all, a deep internal struggle to recover control of his destiny as a pilot. From the first day in Maranello, his signing was sold as a historical movement. The union of the most laureate pilot of the modern era with the most iconic team in history promised epic greatness titles. But what he has found is a much more rough and complex reality. Hamilton did not reach Ferrari simply to add trophies. He arrived by legacy, for leaving a mark that transcends the numbers, by emulating Schumacher, for challenging himself in an environment where everything, from technical culture to track communication, works differently from what he knew in Mercedes. This paradigm shift has been a personal earthquake. Lewis has had to rebuild his relationship with the car, with engineers, even with strategic decision-making. What was previously automatic is now a constant negotiation with a machine that does not speak its language. In Australia and China, their public statements have already begun to suggest signs of discomfort. Phrases like, "I still do not fully trust the car," or "I am adapting to a very different environment" show the latent tension. And the most revealing has not been what he has said, but how he has said it. Without his usual security, without the challenging brightness in his eyes. Hamilton is not just trying to run quickly, he is trying to find his place within a structure that he has not yet learned to listen to him at all. The problem is not just the car. It's emotional. It is philosophical. In Mercedes, everything revolved around the figure of Lewis. His feedback was law. His style the mold. In Ferrari, he has landed in a culture where Charles Leclerc has years of silent construction, of familiarity with the weaknesses of the car, trustworthy with engineers. And that, even if it does not say openly, conditions the evolution of the car. Hamilton has had to accept that he is the second to know the whims of SF-25. That hurts the ego but also mine operational security. However, the sprint classification in Shanghai showed a powerful flash. It was the first time that Hamilton was seen attacking with confidence, extracting the maximum of a still imperfect car. That return, almost perfect, was not only fast, it was symbolic. It was a message to Ferrari, on the grille, to himself. What can still? That magic is still there. But it also made it clear that this level only emerges when the conditions are almost aligned. And that is not sustainable without a deeper transformation of the technical environment. Internally, the team knows. In Maranello, there is concern about the impact that a start of the season like this can have on Hamilton's morals. A pilot of his caliber is not used to shooting in 6th or 7th position. He is not accustomed to seeing how other teams snatch tenths for no response. If that dynamic is prolonged, the risk is double: lose your motivation, or start distrusting the structure that surrounds it. What is at stake are not just points or positions. The viability of an alliance is at stake that, if it does not solidify soon, can be eroded from within. Hamilton needs to feel the axis of Ferrari's technical revolution, not one more gear. He needs to know that his voice is heard, that his experience counts, that his indications really influence the development of the car. Because if not, the dream of the 8th crown with the Cavallino will fade into the same smoke of the escapes that today prevent him from shining. And that's why Imola is not just a career. It is an emotional thermometer, a mutual trust meter. If Ferrari makes Hamilton end that Sunday with the feeling that the car begins to respond to his style, time and hope will have won. If not, the most anticipated marriage of the decade runs the risk of becoming another story of what could be. Emilia-Romagna's Grand Prix will not be a simple more chapter in the Ferrari season. It will be the turning point. The career where it will be defined whether Maranello's team has the ability to adapt to the demands of its new leader or if it will be trapped, once again, in the repeated story of not living up to its own myth. Because the SF-25, more than a Formula One car, has become the mirror of everything Ferrari must resolve. Its technical decisions, its internal culture, its capacity for evolution under pressure, and above all, its relationship with change. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, has made it clear that he is willing to put everything on his part. His professionalism, his ability to adapt, his experience of more than 300 major awards. None of that is in doubt. But not even the most extraordinary talent can compete when the tools are not up to it. What he has shown so far is admirable, but not enough. Because despite his name, his history, his ability to find time where there is no, Hamilton continues to run up. And that, in a category where thousands decide races, is unsustainable. The challenge for Ferrari is no longer technical. It is existential. You must decide if you want to be a team that honors your symbols but repeat your mistakes, or if you are willing to break with the past to build a present at the height of its history. That decision begins in Imola, a circuit that breathes tradition but that will require modernity. A place where each curve will be a trial, every return a verdict, and every millimeter of track will test the synergy between Hamilton and its new team. And while the spotlights are lit and the roar of the engines rumbles in the hills of Emilia-Romagna, Formula One observes silently. Because what is about to happen at the Enzo E. Dino Ferrari Autodrome is not just one more race. It is the moment of truth for Ferrari. And the question that is floating in the air without immediate response is as clear as disturbing. Will it be enough? Do you think Ferrari will transform the potential into results? Will we finally see Hamilton fighting victories with the rampant Cavallino, or will it be another year of frustrations? The track has the last word.